All right, guys, welcome to my first video. We'll see how this goes. Let's jump right in. First off, we're making the nightstand. This is the nightstand video, and here is what you guys are going to build as your finished product, okay? It's got a drawer, it's got a face frame, it's got a face for the top, it's got a back panel, and you are going to build this nightstand. We're going to go piece by piece, though, because there's a lot of technical stuff to this. If we pull this apart, we see got the back panel, we've got the drawer, we've got the face frame off the front, face off the top, shelves, and now just our side panels. That's what we're going to build today, is just the side panels. That's your assignment, and we'll go from there. Let's look over here at this copy that was made. It's got a lot more detail. All right. If you've looked at your screenshots of what you should have for this assignment, this is what things should look like. Let's put on our dimensions. I need to tag some of my other dimensions clearly, and I'll put my vocab in there. But this is what your final screenshot should look like. You've got your two side panels, and these are 2 feet tall by 2 feet wide, and they're 3/4 inch deep. So it's 2 foot by 2 foot by 3/4 inch. When you make the first panel, as I'm going to walk through with you momentarily, we're going to make sure to make a component of the second panel so that all the work is really done once on one panel. The other panel will build itself because it's a component. You'll just copy everything over automatically. Okay. Notice that I labeled the front side and the back side. That's for your benefit so you don't get mixed up along the way, because there is a difference. And if you don't have that clear, you're going to have problems later potentially. Okay, the width apart for these two is 2 feet and 3/4 of an inch. Notice I'm measuring, oh, you know what? I need to fix that. Okay, that measurement should be 2 feet exactly apart. Notice I measured outside to outside, and I just noticed that. I will fix that in the assignment before I post it. So it should say 2 feet here on yours, so that it goes either midpoint to midpoint or left edge to left edge, right to right, however you want to do it. Mine is off by a little. All right, let's talk about the included new terminology for this assignment. Let's take that guy and just move him out of the way for a sec. So when we talk about a dado is a slot cut into a piece of wood. The purpose of a dado is when we put the shelves back in here in just a second. Let's see if I can do that and how that'll look with something missing. Okay, when we put the shelves back in, this gives us a lot of strength in our cabinet. Okay, when you do joinery, if we were to just take this shelf and just glue it flat up against the edge of this piece of wood, that's called a butt joint. You just butt them together and glue them. Not very strong, especially because this piece of wood, the end of it has end grain. End grain sucks up a lot of glue before it's able to dry at that surface joint. And so you get a weak joint, and it's just not a good way to go. So we fix that by making these things called dados. We cut out the piece of wood just to the exact width of what we're sliding into it, and then it slots in. And now there's a shelf. We've created a shelf for that shelf to kind of hook onto, and it gives you a lot of strength. Okay. Those are called dados. So you're going to make some dados. Now, rabbets are actually the exact same thing. A rabbet is a dado that's been pushed out to the very corner of the board. So all the dado is a cutaway that's got both edges there. So it's like a trench with two walls. A rabbet has one wall, other side is missing. So it's just open-ended. You basically cut the corner off your piece of wood. So if you take a dado and you were to push it all the way out to the edge, as soon as the dado gets far enough to the corner that it cuts away the other edge and it's open-ended, it just became a rabbet. They're the exact same thing, except that a rabbet is right on the corner and the dado can be slotted anywhere in the wood so that it's got two sidewalls. So notice we're going to put a dado for each shelf. We've got a bottom shelf, a middle shelf, and a top shelf which requires 3 dados. And then the top one is actually a rabbit. So 2 dados, and we call that top one a rabbit because it's right on the top. So you'll cut it such that you notice your shelf is flat. It's flush right at the top of that board. There's nothing holding it on the top end. It's just on the bottom edge that it's supported. Okay. Also notice we have a rabbit on the back. This rabbit is a slight cutaway on the back edge of the board. The purpose for that is to put our back panel in. If we click there, we can see the back panel plugs right into that. Okay, he's going to go right into that piece there. And that's only a thinner 1/4 inch piece of plywood. If you guys happen to look at furniture around your house, like the nightstand sitting right next to me right now in my room, if you reach into the very back of it, what goes up against the wall, you rarely have a solid full piece of wood. There's usually just a backer panel, and it's just a thin piece of plywood because no one ever sees that. It's not used for structural purposes, so they don't waste good wood on a back panel that no one would ever see. It's just a thin little piece of plywood. Okay, that's what you guys are going to put. That's why I also panel colored it differently. That kind of makes it stand out, and that would be kind of typical. You might see a noticeable difference in this actual wood and then just a piece of veneered plywood that you slap on the back there. Okay. All right, one more thing to point out. Notice this. Oh, looks like my off. Oh no, that's my shelf. Let me put my last shelf there. Notice once the shelf is put in place and the piece of plywood is over the top of it, that's all flush right there. That's your goal. You have a nice, clean, flush back end of your nightstand, but notice that that dado does not go all the way to the end. We didn't cut the dado, the rabbit, because it's got no edge. We didn't cut the rabbit all the way down to the edge for that back panel because it stops at the bottom. There's that little bit of shelf opening where your nightstand will have an open cutout at the bottom. So don't send your back panel all the way to the ground. Stop it right above that shelf. Okay, so that's the idea of what we're doing. Let's go ahead and build those. Let's see if I can just Control Z and move that back, I hope. Oh, bummer. Oh. There we go. Let's go ahead and build those from scratch. First thing, I want a 2 by 2 by 3/4. Well, that's easy enough. Now, right here, I can draw my rectangle on the ground, just like that with the blue square, but then I'm going to have to stand it up on end. I'm going to have to rotate it. So why don't we make life easier? Single click R to start my rectangle, and it's blue. So I'm going to use my arrow keys until I get standing up red. Now that it's standing up red, it's oriented exactly the same as the panels we have now. So now when I build it, it's already going to look exactly how I want it to look. And I want 2 foot. So I'm going to put 2 foot, comma, 2 foot, boom, done. Push, pull that guy out to 3/4. And then right here, don't forget, right click and right click a little bit slow. Sometimes I notice when I'm working with you guys, and I notice myself, if you right click too quick, and this is web-based, some of those clicks get lost, getting sent out to the server and back, and it may not grab the entire thing, and you need a triple click to grab the whole thing. Okay. Normally we'd make it a group, but in this case, we're going to jump to making it a component, and we're going to call it side panel. And notice it tells me I've already got one, so I'm just going to call it side panel 1 just to keep the names separate, but you can just call it side panel. And I'm going to go ahead and make that a wood grain right now and just be done with that. I don't know what I think I used that one. Let's see. Sure, that works. You know what? Let's make this new one slightly different just so we can tell it apart from the, sure, I'll make it that just so we can tell it apart from the assembled one as we go. All right, so I've got this guy here, and we're gonna copy him and move him, and we want it to be 2. Remember, it's supposed to be 2 inches apart. So I'm just gonna copy and move him. Keep him on the red line. See that dotted red line, and I'm gonna go 2 feet, and done. Now, with my 2 panels 2 feet apart, if I start doing, you know what? I'll just do the work, and I'll show you in a minute. That'll be easier. Okay. What we need to do to those panels is add all these cutouts to make it ready for the rest of the project. So we'll start with our first dado. It tells us right there, and it tells you in your assignment as well. 2 inches from the bottom is where we start the first dado. So let's go do that. I'm going to use my tape measure tool, and I don't know if you guys have noticed at this point, I've got to turn my guides back on. Okay, anytime you don't have any guides, come in here to the little sunglasses, eyeglasses option, make sure your guides are turned on. And notice if I go at the end point of something, it will not give me that dotted line perpendicular guide, which I like. You have to go not on a corner. You have to be on an edge, an open edge that's not a corner. If you do that, then you get that guideline you want. I'm going to do 2 inches. There we go. Now, when we cut out a dado, this is something I had not mentioned yet to you guys. Anytime you use a dado or rabbet, so it's true for this cutout at the top, it's true for this cutout in the middle, and the bottom here, all of these dados and rabbets, including the smaller one on the back, even though it's thinner for that piece of plywood, the depth of all dados and all rabbets is half the thickness of the piece of wood you're in. Okay, that's your rule of thumb. So if we've got a 3/4 inch piece of wood, we want to do half of 3/4 of an inch. What is half of 3/4 of an inch? If we don't know, we're going to be kind of stuck there. Do you guys know what half of 3/4 of an inch is? I'll give you some help with a little shortcut. Anytime you need to do half of any measurement, which is a useful thing to know in the woodshop, just double the denominator. Okay, if I have 3/4 as my full width, then if I double fourths to eighths, that's just twice as many sections per inch or per unit. So they all have to be half the size. So 3/8 has to be half the width of 3/4 because I just doubled that denominator, which means they're all half their size. And if I take 3 units of something half the size, I've got half the overall distance. So 3/4, half of it, 3/8. If you were dealing with something that was 1/2 inch, a dado would be 1/4 inch, just double that denominator, etc., etc., etc. All right, so we're going to cut a dado starting right here, and it's going to go 3/4 deep. So to start a line right there, go over, and I'm going to go 3/4. Excuse me, 3/8. Just checking to see if you're listening. There you go. And now height. Before we go upward, remember the height is not half. The height of all of these has to fit whatever's going to go into it. So the height would be varied depending on whatever you're going to put into that slot. This project, this nightstand, every single thing we build on this nightstand, the drawer, the top, the face frame, all of it is going to be 3/4 inch thick wood, except for that back panel that's a piece of plywood. So everything we do here is 3/4 inch. So every dado, every rabbet, you're cutting them all 3/4 wide so they can fit the boards that are going to go in them later. So we're just going to add one more here, and we're going to go 3/4 for the height, and then one more straight over. And I already forgot something. I'm kind of glad I'm doing these videos, guys. Do you know why I'm erasing the 3 lines I just made that were all correct? Although I didn't want to erase my guideline. Do you know why we have to erase those 3? Because I wasn't inside my group. We got to go inside the group, and then we can do what we need to do. If you're not going to be able to affect it. So let's all do it again. 3/8, 3/4. Boom. Now notice that the outside edge of the face is all still highlighted, the inside's not, and if I click, it reverses. That means I've got a face that the program recognizes as separate from the rest of the face. So when I push pull, whoosh, man, I wish it was this easy to make dados in the real woodshop. And if you just click to that back edge, you can see we've now got a dado. Oh, that life could be that easy in the woodshop to cut a dado that quick and easy. And notice it is 2 inches from the bottom, it's 3/8 deep, half the width, and it's 3/4 high. The full thickness or the width of this is like the thickness of the board we're going to slot into there, and we're done. Now notice we cut them in the exact same place, so we're just going to rotate this guy, and that way everything mirrors, and we only have to do all the work once. A shortcut for you. Let me just move everything over here so it's not in the way. is you can just use this flip along. And again, we can't really see what we're doing. So let's get to where we can see it when we flip it. Okay, see this flip along? You've got red, green, blue. It's kind of easy to just click each one and then see where you want it. We want this dado to appear on the bottom edge here. So let's try it. Got it on the first try. All right. If you don't, just click that one again to put it back and then click the next one. It might flip from the bottom to the top. It might flip from the bottom to the inside. I don't know if you could get it to the inside edge. Hopefully you'll figure it out. All right, so we've got one. Go to the next. The next one is 4 1/4, so 16 1/4 inches high. Okay. I think that one you guys can do. 16 1/4, and then start your second dado. I think you can handle that. Let's now go to our rabbits. So I can work on either of these now because they're components. They're both going to mimic each other. So if I want, I can just start right on this guy. And if I'm going to cut a rabbit, it's the same idea. First, make sure you're double clicking into your group. And we're going to go 3/4 down. So I think I'm going to do a measure first just so I know where my 3/4 is. There we go. And so we'll start here. We'll go over 3/8. That's half the thickness of that piece of wood. Clearly, I just typed something wrong. I don't know what just happened. Let's do that again. By the way, you just hit Command Z. That's how you go back. There we go. And are you guys also noticing I'm never going over to this or often not going over to this tool menu? You don't need to. You should just memorize your shortcuts, make your life much quicker. And boom, there we go. So notice here we went 3/8 in, 3/4 up. That's going to be my rabbit, exactly the same as a dado. It just doesn't have its outside wall. Go to that far edge, it's gone, and there you go. And notice it mirrored on the other side. You should have a rabbit on the top, and you should have a dado on the bottom there. Okay. Now let's look at our back rabbit. We're going to do the same thing here. And we'll do that guy. He's easier to get to. But remember, we don't want to push it all the way down to the ground. We want to stop when we hit this guy. And that one's going to be, let me think. And this is real woodworking here. This is what you guys need to do. Sometimes you don't realize there's a lot of thought before you move forward. Because if you just randomly cut this to the wrong thickness, wrong width, well, you can't add the wood back like you can in SketchUp. So think before you're working is a good habit. Understand conceptually what you're doing before you move forward. Good habit. So we're going to put a 1/4 inch piece of plywood. Let's get back inside that group. It's only 1/4 inch thick. So along that wall, I'm going to do a 1/4. Okay. So we've got that. Is that looking correct? Yes. So I'm just going to cut away right here a 1/4 inch and start that line right on that point. And then I'm just going to go straight in on the red axis. There we go. Now, good. We've got that. But is that a 1/4 inch? I just am not sure that it is. It is. Okay, I guess I'm zoomed in. So if I pull that down, yeah, you can see now it is a 1/4 inch. You can see it's much thinner than the width of this one up here. So we pull that down. But we don't go all the way to the bottom. We just break it through that last section. So you just go right up against that line and pop that one. And then notice here, unsightly little lines. Get rid of those. There you go. And there we go. We've now got a rabbit on the back, a cutout to fit our panel. Now the whole point is so your panel will be flush. Nothing will be sticking out on the side of your nightstand. It'll go right up against the wall. Nobody can see that panel unless they're looking at the back. So that'll fit nice right in here, inset, and we've got room and slots for we've got our dados for our shelves. You still need to cut one more. I'm going to leave that to you. And then the other thing is at this point, I think you guys can do all your dimensions in vocab. Write front side and back side on here so you don't forget, because your backside rabbits are on the back. And if you forget that and mess something up, you're going to have these funny little grooves on the front of your nightstand later, which is not good. And yes, I've seen kids do exactly that in the woodshop with their real project. Okay. Guides, I'll throw a quick guide on here in case anybody can use some help with that. Go into your tape measure and then it's the dimensions here. I don't think there's a shortcut for that, so what you just have to use it. And then it's a single click on a corner, single click on a corner, and then drag it out to the side, third click, and done. Let's turn off all these guides. Turn off your guides for your screenshots, makes things much cleaner. So you've got a 2-inch there, and then do another one for your, all this stuff. Your stuff should look like this. You've got your 2-inch, your 1 4 1/4. You've got your 2 feet across. You've got your 2-foot height. You've got your 2-foot deep, and then you've got all your labels front and back side, and we've got our dado, rabbit, rabbit. All right, you guys just got a great little beginner lesson into cabinetry. I'll talk to you in class. Let me know if you have questions.